Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. And the title of this talk is What Can Education Do for Your 21st Century Child? And I was reflecting that the question of why send your child to school is probably a question that my parents never considered, and that their generation would be unlikely to have considered. But I've come most recently from a place in the UK called Forest Row, which has a very thriving homeschool movement in addition to having a Waldorf School there. And that is a place where lots of people ask the question, what am I doing by sending my child to school? Why am I even doing that? Yeah, what do I want my child to gain from that? Yeah. So to begin with, I'm going to invite you to consider that question. Why? What do you want? When you send your child off to school, what do you want that to do for them? So just have a little think about that. Maybe make a couple of notes if you feel like it. And I'm going to be collecting answers in moments. I can see that most of you are still writing. It's a deep question. But I'm going to interrupt you. You've had time to at least have a thought about it, even if you haven't kind of fully articulated your answer. Yeah. So would anyone like to volunteer one of their reasons for sending their child to school? Sorry? Happy learning. For happy learning. Okay. So we got two things there. We want them to be happy and we want them to be learning. Okay. Good.
Yes, like social, like they get to meet friends and like to communicate, or for them, like to learn how to be with people that other than their families.
Yeah. Okay. So it's to socialize them in a way. Okay? Good. Do people resonate with those reasons so far? Okay. What else? To be motivated by their peers. What else? What other reasons are there in the room for sending your child to school? Yeah, good. I had that one because I've got to work, and this is a kind of productive child care. It's like you send them away and you get something back as well. Great. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, initially, like the reason for me to send her to school is because I can take a break, because I'm a full-time mom. So yeah, I go to school, I have my me time.
Okay. Me time. Okay. Good. So some other reasons that people have, I think, conventionally sent their children to school is so that they can become a citizen of the world that they are in. Yeah? So they know about that world, so that they can eventually participate in the economy of that world. And maybe even we want them to have a good job. Yeah? We want them to, be comfortable and autonomous when they are adults. Yeah? Something like that. What other reasons might there be? There might be that we want them, some people send their children to a particular school, like a religious school, for example, because they want their child to have certain values imparted to them by their school experience. That was probably more common a while ago than it is now, but there's still something of that. Yeah. What about, how many of you would like your child to fulfill their potential? Yeah, and in order to fulfill their potential, they need to be exposed to a certain range of experience so that you can see what aptitudes they have. They can see what aptitudes they have. Yeah? I'm really good at maths, but handwork just really confuses me, or I'm musical but not visual, or whatever it is. And school is a good place to kind of work through some of those things. Yeah. Okay. What about, I want to send my child to school. We had happy learning, so I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit, so that they can go through all of the stages that they need to go through as a child in a good way. Yeah. That might sound kind of obvious as something that you would want for your child in their education, but a lot of education has been oriented towards we educate children because childhood is an inferior state of being, and we want to turn them into adults as soon as we can. Yeah. And the more adult-like my child can be early on, the better that is. So don't wait on something if I can be giving it to them now and they can be becoming more mature in that way. Now, I want to share with you one of the things that Rudolf Steiner says about what our task as teachers is in Waldorf education. What it is that we might think we're trying to do for your child. And Steiner suggests in the very first lecture that he gave to the people who were going to be teachers at the very first Waldorf School, he says, your task as educators will be to help the children harmonize the soul spiritual part of their being with their physical being. They're going to harmonize their consciousness, development of their consciousness, with their vitality. And Steiner, in that series of lectures, he goes into some detail and some length about how consciousness and vitality are kind of polar opposites. So it's a tricky balance to get. Yes? So if I ask you what, let's say, 13 times 11 is, that's going to be an easier question for you to answer if you're sitting still like you are now than if you were dancing madly in the room. When we want to think, we tend to want to be still. We don't want to be moving. And when we're moving, it's hard to be conscious in that way. It's hard to reflect when we're doing that. Unless it's something maybe like if you're jogging sometimes and it's a very repetitive movement and your body kind of takes care of that and your head can kind of be on holidays riding on the top. Yeah, then maybe you can do something like that. Yeah. So one of the tasks of education is to integrate and harmonize these things, which suggests that they're not in harmony to begin with. Okay? They have to grow acclimated to each other. Yeah, and this is part of the picture of the child and of the human being that we are working with in Waldorf education, is that you have these different layers of yourself. Okay, so let's just have a look at those for a minute. So you are right now, you are sitting on your chair, and you're not falling through the chair, but you're also not floating off of the chair. So you are experiencing gravity. You're experiencing atomic bonds of different kinds, of different densities and so on, will keep you from falling through the chair, which physics would tell us is mostly empty space. So there's a part of you that abides by the laws of physics, that belongs to that world. Yeah, and it's part of that world. So if I put my hand here, my hand also won't fall through my leg, because my body is part of that world, and that's my physical body. Yeah. And then you are also breathing. Yeah. That's a slightly different level, but you're all breathing. Your hearts are beating. You might be digesting. And so there's this whole realm of life processes going on. And Steiner, he kind of lumps those two together, the physical body and what you would call the life or the etheric body, into this lower part of this equation. This is the part that basically is genetic, that comes through the coming together of the parents. And the physical body, the etheric body, they're emerge through the birth process. Yeah. Then there's another level where, and so far we're unconscious. Fortunately, we don't have to remember to breathe. Yeah. We might have to remember to breathe deeply or to take a deep breath sometimes, but we don't have to do that consciously. We don't have to control our heart beating. But then we get to a layer where the relationship to our awareness becomes more complex. So you're hearing my voice. You don't have to try to hear. You can hear. That's given to you. But you do have to try to listen. Yeah, you're a bit more present in your listening. Yeah, so you can even ask yourself, is this part, the life part, the vitality part, the physical body, to what extent is that even me? And then there are my senses, what I see, what I hear, what I touch, all of those kinds of things, also like my sense of balance and so on. All of that I can feel I'm a bit more aware in, and I tend to identify with that. And on that level is also, it's a complex set of things, but there are things like our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts. All of that is going on in that level of awareness as well. And all of that Steiner would refer to as the astral body or the soul. And then, so that's up here somewhere, okay? And then there's the spirit, which is different from all of those things. The spirit you could think of as what's kind of directing those faculties. So for example, could you please concentrate on your right foot? Feel your right foot. What does your right foot feel like right now?
It's good.
What about your left elbow? What does your left elbow feel like right now? Okay, now go back and forth between your left elbow and your right foot. The capacity to feel those is a soul capacity. But directing it from here to there and there to here is something that would belong more to the spiritual level. And you guide all of your faculties in some way. Okay? Now, as the physical body down here, that belongs to the physical world and obeys the laws of physics. Then you have the kind of biological body, which belongs to the world of biology. Yeah, the same life world that is causing your heart to beat is causing your heart to beat. That's not so individual yet. And then here, when we get to this, what I'm calling the soul level, that also lives in its world of sensation and feeling and so on. And that's, you could kind of say that's the world of psychology, but psychology is kind of more iffy as a science than we're okay kind of with biology and physics, but I would think you get a lot of disagreement about what the laws of this world are. Yeah, the world of consciousness. There'll be lots of different points of view about that. And then even more so when we get to the world of what is spiritual and what that world is. Is that even a world? We might ask as a modern person. So, very first thing he tells the teachers is you have to try to help these things integrate. You have to help those things integrate. There's the body there, there's the part that is unconscious, it's given by the parents, and then there's this part which has to do, in the anthroposophical picture, with somebody who has already been here and is coming back. And that somehow this spirit has to inhabit this body. And let's think about, so that we can understand why it's important that it does that, let's think about, for a minute, what happens if it doesn't do that, if it doesn't inhabit that body in a healthy way. So, have you ever had a great idea that you have not been able to bring to reality? Great idea for a business or for writing that novel or for whatever it was that seemed very vibrant up here, but never quite landed down here. Or have you ever been doing something, maybe in a job somewhere, where if you stopped and asked yourself, why am I doing this, you wouldn't actually be able to say. Yeah? This is very busy, yeah, but what is it really giving me or anyone else? Yeah? And that's on the personal level. And so you could say in Waldorf education, we want to empower children to be able to actually realize their intentions. And there are things in the curriculum like eurythmy and form drawing, which are specifically in the curriculum to help that integration happen in a very forceful way. Yeah. And we want children to have a certain degree of autonomy, that they know why they're doing whatever it is that they end up doing. So we want these two parts to be together. Now it sounds, I have to say, as an educational aim, compared to I want my child to do well on the exams and get a good job, it sounds a little bit airy-fairy, this thing here, yeah? But if I think about the world, the whole world, and where we're at as a world, then it starts to feel a lot more practical. So what are the world's problems? One of the world's problems is that there's still a way too high percentage of the world's population that is hungry. There's a way too high percentage of the world's population that doesn't have any kind of adequate housing or drinking water. There's the whole climate thing. There are health issues, as we all know. Huge disparities of wealth and so on. And there's an ocean full of plastic. And now I've heard about a teenager who has invented a machine that can clean up massive amounts of plastic very effectively from the ocean. He hasn't had the opportunity to actually put it into production. Energy is another area. We know answers to lots of these problems. They're available. They're there. We could do it. But we don't want to. Because this is moving along kind of by itself in a certain way. The will, the collective will, isn't integrated with our best ideas. And in the middle, there's this, are they even intersecting? Do we have a Venn diagram here, or do we just have two separate circles? And we're on the brink. I read that we are on the brink of the fourth industrial revolution. It's a familiar idea. We're on the brink of the fourth industrial revolution, which will integrate digital technology with our biology, basically. And we've had an industrial revolution in the sort of 1850s, around that time, where horsepower went from being a thing that pertained to a horse, and how much can a horse pull, and kind of the most horsepower you could muster for something was, well, you could get a team of maybe 10 horses, and you could pull something, 10 horses. And within sort of 50 years, things evolved and developed to a point where you had engines that were like 10,000 horsepower. So we became able to apply a lot more physical power to our problems and our situations, which we put to work overcoming this or that limitation, so we could become more masters of the environment, the world, and so on and so forth. And then kind of the electrical revolution was the second industrial revolution, which was also about providing power. And then we had fairly recently still, in my lifetime, we had the computer revolution, which is a revolution of this part, our capacity, our intellectual capacity, our calculating power, memory power, exponentially increased. And now that's set to be integrated even further. So we've had revolutions down here, exponential increases in capacity down here. We've had the same thing up here. We haven't had it here yet. We haven't had it here yet. Imagine if you had the power of empathy, compassion, and generosity multiplied by 10,000. What would our society look like? Can you even begin to imagine what that would look like? So there's a personal level to this integration, and there's a societal level to this integration. And the question is, of course, how do you do it? How can an education help your child in that way? And this series of lectures is going to, in part, be an expanding on that. How do you do it? What is it that we're trying to do, and how do we go about it in maths, in language, in science, in art, and so on and so forth. But this evening, I wanted to just kind of present that and to give a kind of introduction to some of those things. Right? So, in that same first lecture, the two things that Steiner points to are sleeping and breathing. He says we have to help the children with their sleeping and their breathing. And it's a very kind of weird thing to think about. Yes, children are good sleepers a lot of the time. They have no problem sleeping for 11 hours, 10 hours, whatever, in ways that most of us as adults could only dream about. Yes. And of course they can breathe. So what does he mean? What is he talking about? Yeah. So first of all, think about sleep, because sleep is a place that we see this split between these two and these two very clearly. Because when you're in the bed, when you're asleep, these two are a unit. Yeah, your physical body is there and your life functions are continuing, but you don't have any consciousness. And your consciousness is wherever it goes. Yes, when we are asleep. And then in the morning it comes back. Have you ever experience that sometimes that takes a while for those two to start integrating again? Yes? It's one of the reasons, of course, that coffee is so popular. Because that's how I want to harmonize my soul spiritual being with my physical etheric being, because I want to have a cup of coffee. And then I go, all right, okay, I'm here. Right, I'm ready. Yes? Fortunately, we haven't come to the place yet where we want to give our 7-year-olds that cup of coffee to just really bring them in, yeah? Because it also does various terrible things to this part of our body, okay? So we see that difference in that place. Now, the other thing that happens when we sleep is that when we wake up, we feel better. Yeah, we feel refreshed. If we were tired before, hopefully we feel better. Yeah? So that's another clue that the world of consciousness and the world of vitality are somehow opposed to each other, that in order for our bodies to replenish themselves, rejuvenate themselves, we need to jettison that part for a while. We need to get rid of that part for a while. Yeah? And the other interesting side of that is that if you have been wrestling with some problem the evening before, often in the morning, it seems to make much more sense. Yeah? You get the idea you've been looking for. Not always, but often enough that we know that that's a thing. Yeah? So it also clearly somehow benefits the consciousness part of us, the spirit soul part of us, to be free of the heaviness of this bit for a while. And Steiner suggests that this connection between these two parts and the ability to turn our doing during the day into wisdom during the night is the thing that we need to help our children learn to do. That it doesn't happen just kind of automatically. And so that's one of the reasons that in Waldorf education we talk about working with the night, or we talk about a 2-day rhythm or a 3-day rhythm to the lesson. So the teacher presents something, tells a story on Monday, and then the children go home and they go to sleep. And then the next day, we bring that back. We do a drawing or a painting or a poem, or we retell the story, or we act something out or we just talk about it. Yeah? And that way, whatever the child gets used to going to sleep with the expectation of meeting it again the next day and meeting it on a deeper level. And then on the third day, or perhaps on the second day, if the child's a little bit older, they themselves are going to produce something, write something in relation to what the teacher presented the day before. So it's just following these rhythms of the day and the night through the education, also from year to year, the different festivals that we celebrate. All of those involve something being vivid and present and then going to sleep and then coming back. So we're not asking them to remember everything all the time and hold on to everything all the time. We're trying to develop their resiliency and their memory through allowing things to go to sleep for a while and then making it conscious again. And then letting it go to sleep again and making it conscious again. And then with breathing, in a way it's more, it's just allowing the children to access these two different parts in every lesson. Yeah, so that in every good lesson there's a part where their vitality is being served. Yeah. If it might be a maths lesson and they're doing something, they're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're walking, they're jumping, they're skipping, they're doing something in relation to numbers, but there's something that is connecting that more cerebral subject to their body. In the games lessons, there will be a huddle with the games teacher. I saw Chi doing that today, do a great job, and getting the children focused on what they're about to do, so that they're not just running around like crazy people, but they're running around with a sense of intention and with a sense of the quality of what they're doing. And so there's a little bit of consciousness in the movement bits, there's a bit of movement in the more cerebral bits, and we're not trying to do both at the same time, but we're letting the children breathe back and forth between those different things in each lesson and also through the course of the day. So, in my schooling, it was mostly sitting still, and it was mostly using my brain all day long. Yeah, and now, of course, we have your children are all dealing with screens in some way. Yeah, and screens are not connected, not integrating. They are kind of this realm, but in an unreal way. Yeah? So they're presenting this kind of world that isn't actually the real world. So it's kind of doubly distorting, which is why they're very useful tools for us, but they're not very good for children. Yeah, it's not even the content, it's the nature of the medium itself is neurologically kind of disorienting. Yeah, and it's disconnecting them from their will, and it's disconnecting them from their body. So they have that battle, which obviously isn't anybody's fault. It's the way things are evolving, but it's a thing that education now has to try to remediate in some way. And Waldorf education is kind of built in a certain sense to do that. And the less of that the child has to cope with, the more easily this process of integration has a chance of happening. Now, there are lots of other ways. As I said, I'll be talking about how we do what we do in a lot in these different lectures. But there's an additional thing, a couple of additional things I wanted to mention tonight. And one of those is that in bringing these two things together, the beauty of it and the challenge of it is that no two children's this part and that part are the same. I usually think of them kind of as a couple of triangles, yeah? But these are kind of generic triangles. And your child's triangles aren't like that. So the examples I like to give, because they're really good contrasting examples. I had a child who had a very strong, robust physical body. He was healthy, he had rosy cheeks. He was a big boy. And so his base triangle would have been convex. It would have been red. It would have been abundant. Cognitively, he was very challenged. Cognitively, if you looked at this part of him, it might have looked something like that. Not very well centered over this, yeah, and very anxious, very kind of defensive because he always thought I can't do it, yeah, and very easily frustrated by this part. On the playground, playing a game, in his element, strong, happy. In the lesson, often like this. The lesson was a singing lesson, he had a beautiful voice. And then you could really see the spirit and the body being one thing, beautiful. So, balancing this child's and integrating, harmonizing these two is going to be a very different challenge from the challenge of another boy that I had who was in the very same class, who was about half the size of the first boy I've mentioned. He had a little physical body. And he had an enormous soul and spirit. He knew everything that was going on everywhere. He had ideas about everything. He had so many ideas that he couldn't talk fast enough to get his ideas into the room. Yeah, which made them kind of hard to understand because he couldn't ground them in this. Yeah, he found it excruciating to stay in a chair. He wanted to be everywhere at once, seeing everything, talking about everything. Yeah, so this boy and this boy are going to require quite different approaches. Yeah, and the thing that I think is really crucial in Waldorf education is we are not trying to turn either child into that. Yeah? We're not trying to normalize in that sense. We're trying to see, what does this want to be? How much of this does this child need to make the most out of that? And where is this child's destiny going to take him? You know, this child, we're not going to try to beef him up until he's like that one. Yeah, we're going to try to say, how can we help make all of this coherent? Yeah, so that he can actually function and communicate in a social way. Yeah. How can we help him ground it in his body that he doesn't shake. So I'm going to give you a little challenge now. This is what you need colored pencils for and the paper. So if everybody gets something that you can draw with. We've got some things there as well. I invite you to think of someone that you know really well, such as yourself or your child, your husband, yeah, somebody you know really well. And I want you to ask yourself, what do that person's two triangles look like? So you're doing a kind of inner portrait of this person. So, for example, I'm gonna venture to share this. Me as a child, yes. kind of this kind of lower triangle, and I had something like this going on upstairs. Yeah? And I think probably one of the reasons that I am so tall is I was trying to get up into that world because it was so cool up there. It was much cooler than the world out here, so I didn't grow that way. Yes, I grew that way. That was where the action was. Yes. So, somebody that you know well, is the lower triangle, the physical life constitution part, is it robust? Is it self-contained? Are the edges of it going to be firm edges? Or are they going to be kind of fuzzy edges? What color would it be? And then the other part, is it convex, raying out into the space, with curiosity and interest? Or is it a bit concave and needing things to be really clear and narrow in order to feel okay? Are its edges, are its boundaries firm, or are its boundaries porous? So if somebody else says something, will they immediately take that in, or will they hold on to their own idea? That's what I mean by the edges. Okay, try it again tomorrow morning. See if it's different after a night's sleep. And what do you think? Is that a hard thing to do? Or is it when you try to do that, do you think, oh yeah, I can see that? Or is it do you find it difficult to do that? Easy. Okay.
Can you explain it and I will kind of imagine when you explain the two scenarios, I kind of imagine someone that I know, kind of similar.
Yeah.
But then when you ask me to think about myself or another group, actually I'm not so sure about if I really truly know if it's really like this.
Yeah. The thing, I mean, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. But it's one of those things that if you develop the habit of looking that way, you get better at it. So when I've had a class, I've got one of those in evolution for every child that I'm teaching. Because otherwise I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, otherwise I don't know that I want to help this child use his physical gifts wherever I can in relation to the material to help the material make sense. Yeah, do you see what I mean? Yeah. And this child, it's something else. It's finding patterns for him. It's finding patterns and then making him write them down or draw them so it goes through his fingers or it goes through his feet or something like that. Now, the thing is about trying to integrate these two, all of those other good reasons for sending your child to school are served by this process. So if you want your child to get a good job and make a lot of money, it's great if their intentions and their ability to manifest it are in sync. That's a really good quality in the world. Now, the world is full of people who have brilliant ideas, but people who have brilliant ideas who can actually manifest them are much more rare. If you want them to be happy, they'll be happy if they are at home in their body. Yeah, they'll be happier than if their body is, presenting obstacles to them. Their potential. I mean, in a way, this is their potential. how much of their spirit and soul can come through the instrument they have. What capacities does the instrument have? So all of those other things can arise in relation to that in a healthy way. Okay. Are there questions that I can answer in relation to what I've said tonight?
Actually, when you mentioned about you have to analyze what kind of like know each kind of analyze the situation of each kid that you are going to teach.
Yeah.
Because in a class like it's very personalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then in a class there is like say like in for us like only like 10 person, 10 students
Yeah.
in the class.
Yeah.
So like how, because everyone might be very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and like how would you be able to, because
Yeah.
the teaching time is in that time
Yeah.
frame, but how would you be able to like do that kind of game and plan how to do it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's not easy. And this question of differentiation is the subject of what will be my fourth talk. So I'll go into more detail then. But the beauty of the Waldorf curriculum, from my point of view, is that the Waldorf curriculum identifies really well the general developmental stage of the children. Yeah, so there's going to be a certain core of stuff that they're all going through in some way, more or less. Yeah, some a little earlier, some a little bit later. But an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, they're all going to be kind of in the same space in some area. Yeah, and so that's the sort of core of the activity. And then I think a key thing to remember is what I said about the breathing, that you don't have to be doing something all the time for it to be effective. There are always times where I know that I'm serving the needs of this child a bit more than I'm serving somebody else's needs, and then another time I'll try to serve that child's needs a bit more, and this one's going to have to just kind of go along with what we're doing. Yeah, because you can't in a class setting, you can't do 10 different lessons. Yeah, you have to do one lesson with options for maybe completing it to a more full level or a more basic level, or you can give the assignment in such a way that the student themselves can attach to this part of it or that part of it. Yeah, that they can, to some extent, choose which angle they want to take on that subject. But it's not going to be perfectly individualized, but it doesn't. I think it doesn't have to be either, because part of the socialization that you mentioned at the beginning is learning how to be a part of a group, which means that the group is good for you, but your needs don't necessarily override the needs of the group. You have a sense that I do need my needs met, but I don't need to be the center of that process all the time. So it's the most challenging thing for every teacher that I know is exactly that question, how you do that. And I feel like there are tools that we have in Waldorf education, and also I will have to say I personally have learned a lot about how to do that also from different mainstream education and other alternative educations that I've been able to integrate in a Waldorf way. But it's challenging to do that. But the thing is, at the very end of this first lecture, Steiner says that the children don't just learn by what you do, they also learn by what you are, by which he means what intentions and contexts are you carrying in yourself, and that that the children will intuit that you're doing things to meet the needs of this one and you're doing things to meet the needs of that one, and that you're not trying to turn them all into little good little consumers or producers or whatever. You're not trying to normalize them. You're trying to show that a healthy group has this kind of person and this kind of person and this kind of person, and that we need to support each other in that and so on. I mean, you could do a lot of things with healthy group working as well, different combinations of children, so that it doesn't have to always be just the teacher that's doing the nourishing as well. But as I say, I'll talk about that more coming up. And the role that the temperaments have to play in that, because in mainstream education I've encountered good things for differentiating for visual learners versus kinesthetic learners versus auditory learners, and for generally different cognitive levels. But with the temperaments you have a differentiation tool that gets more into the whole way a child is and the way they approach life and their personality and so on. So it's not just a cognitive differentiation, it's also a feeling differentiation. Okay. Thank you very much for your kind attention this evening. And I hope to see you again. Tell your friends, let's get more people here.